Sometimes life flips the script on you. One day you're building dreams with someone, and the next you're watching them walk away like none of it mattered, and it hurts. It hurts. It really does. But here's what I've learned. When someone walks out, they just made space for something better to walk in. You are still whole, still powerful, still absolutely breathtaking. His absence doesn't create a void in you. It creates clarity, a chance to see yourself without the noise, without the compromise, without the weight of proving your worth to someone who couldn't even see it. Let me tell you something. Being left doesn't mean you're not enough. It means you were too much for someone who couldn't rise to meet your energy. That's not your fault. It's not your failure. That's not your failure. Queens don't beg. Queens rise. Even in heartbreak, you radiate strength. You cry, you heal, and then you get up and walk with your head higher than before because your worth, it doesn't shrink when someone walks away. It glows louder. So, no, this is not your ending. This is your rebirth. Flame me, and this is where your power begins. Not because you were saved, but because you saved yourself. He left. So what? That throne was always yours. Keep your crown on. You never needed him to hold it anyway. We grow up thinking that love completes us. That once someone leaves, there's this part of us that suddenly goes missing, like a piece of our soul has been taken away. But that's a lie we've been fed. Because the truth is, you were always whole. Before the relationship, before the heartbreak, before the promises, they didn't build you. You built you. When someone walks away, it can feel like the ground disappears from beneath your feet. But I want you to know something. That feeling doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're not enough. It just means you're human. It means your heart was invested. And that's beautiful. But their exit doesn't take anything from you. Your light is not dimmed by their distance. Your heart may ache, but it's still beating. And that rhythm is proof that you're still here, still worthy, still everything you were before. No one gets to be the measuring stick for your beauty, your strength, or your value. That crown on your head, it never slips, even if your tears fall. Because being left doesn't leave you empty. If anything, it leaves you freer to find yourself without compromise. Freer to remember who you were before you gave so much of yourself away. You don't need someone beside you to be powerful. You don't need a relationship to feel seen. You're already seen by yourself. And when you start recognizing your own reflection again, not the one filtered through someone else's eyes, but the real you, you'll see just how powerful you've always been. When someone walks out of your life, it can feel like everything is out of word. Like something that once felt safe, something that felt like home is suddenly gone. And you're standing in the ruins wondering what just happened. But the truth is, sometimes that kind of a loss is actually a gift. Because when he left, he didn't just leave emptiness. He created space. A space you didn't know you needed. A space you now get to fill with truth, with healing, with your own light. It's in that space that you find silence again. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of clarity. The kind of clarity that whispers things you couldn't hear over the noise of that relationship, the things you forgot about yourself. Like how beautiful you are when you're not shrinking to make someone else feel secure. Like how peaceful life feels when your love isn't being questioned. Like how radiant you are when your soul isn't tangled in someone else's confusion. Sure, we don't always realize how heavy a situation was until it's lifted off our shoulders. And sometimes what feels like rejection is actually release. It's life saying, you deserve better. You deserve more. You deserve you. It doesn't make the pain vanish, but it makes room for you to grow, to breathe, to rebuild without having to carry the weight of someone who never really understood the depth of your heart. So maybe, just maybe, that empty space you left behind isn't something to mourn. Maybe it's the blank page where your next chapter begins. The one where you rise, not because someone came to save you, but because you finally had room to save yourself. There's this lie we tell ourselves after someone leaves, that somehow, because they're no longer here, we're less lovable, less special, less worthy. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Their presence didn't define your value, and their absence doesn't diminish it. You were already enough before they ever showed up. You were magic long before they tried to label you. Your worth is not conditional. It doesn't depend on someone's ability to see it. Just because he didn't recognize your strength, your softness, your fire, doesn't mean it wasn't there. It just means he wasn't meant to carry that kind of beauty. And that's not your burden to carry. That's his limitation, not your reflection. You are not something that needs to be validated. You're not a question mark waiting for an answer. You are the answer. You are the whole story. When someone walks away and makes you question your value, take a step back and remember this: your value never left with them. You didn't take your kindness. They didn't take your heart. They didn't take your soul. You're still here and you're still overflowing with everything you've always been. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to wear your pain like an apology. You don't have to explain why you feel shattered, but just know deep inside, those cracks aren't flaws. They're proof that you gave love, that you showed up with an open heart. And the right people will never ask you to shrink to fit into their lives. You were never meant to be kept small. You were always meant to shine exactly as you are, with or without him. That truth never changes. Sometimes we look at someone walking away and we call it a loss. We replay every word, every memory, trying to figure out what we could have done differently to make them stay. But what if their leaving wasn't something taken from you? What if it was something that saved you? See, not every departure is a tragedy. Sometimes it's a rescue in disguise, a silent mercy. Because when someone walks away, they're also taking with them the energy that was never meant to stay in your life long term. The mixed signals, the doubts, the way you kept bending just to hold something together that was already falling apart. It removed the illusion. You didn't lose something that was meant for you. You let go of something that was quietly draining you. And now you get to breathe. Now you get to feel what peace tastes like again. Maybe for the first time in a long while. You don't owe loyalty to someone who didn't know how to handle your love. You don't owe heartbreak to someone who couldn't respect your heart. Let them go, not out of bitterness, not out of hate, but out of love for yourself. You deserve a kind of love that doesn't leave. That doesn't make you doubt your own worth. That doesn't make you feel like you have to fight just to be enough. Sometimes what looks like a breaking point is really a turning point, and you'll look back and realize that moment when they walked out, you didn't lose anything. You found yourself. There's this narrative people like to push on women who feel deeply, who love deeply, that if things fall apart, it's because we were too much, too emotional, too intense, too complicated. But let me tell you something. You are not too much. You were never too much. You were exactly enough. In fact, you were probably more than he ever expected to find, more than he was ever prepared to handle. It's so easy to blame yourself when someone pulls away. You start replaying every conversation, every reaction, every time you showed up with your whole heart. And then you wonder, did I scare him away? Did I overwhelm him? Was I too vulnerable, too open? But no, that kind of questioning doesn't come from truth. It comes from heartbreak. And heartbreak is loud, but it's not always honest. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. Your loyalty is not weakness. Your intensity is not something to be diluted. The way you loved with fire, with sincerity, with the hope that it would be safe to give your heart, that is not something to ever feel ashamed of. Because the truth is, not everyone is ready for that kind of love. Not everyone can hold space for something that real, that brave. He wasn't overwhelmed by your love. He was overwhelmed by the reflection of his own inability to rise to it. Your power didn't push him away. It just made it obvious that he couldn't meet you there. And it's easier for people like that to walk than to admit their own limitations. You didn't ask for too much. You just asked the wrong person. The kind of love you give requires presence, honesty, depth, and that kind of love isn't for the faint-hearted. Someone who doesn't see your strength as a threat, but as something sacred. Someone who meets your energy with equal power, not with fear. So don't you dare shrink. Don't tone yourself down. Just because someone couldn't handle the way your soul lit up a room. You're not here to dim your light to comfort someone else's shadow. You're here to shine, to love boldly, to be every inch of who you are, unapologetically. He couldn't handle it. That's on him. But don't ever believe the lie. For the right heart, you will be a masterpiece. Heartbreak doesn't just crack you open. It unmasks you. It strips everything down. All the pretending, all the coping, all the ways you made yourself smaller to keep someone else comfortable. When everything falls apart, you're forced to face yourself in the mirror, raw and exposed. And even though it hurts like hell, it's in that exact space. When you feel like the most shattered version of yourself, that your real strength begins to show. You don't truly know your power until you've had to pick yourself up off the floor piece by piece, heartbeat by heartbeat. It's not the smile you put on in front of others that defines your strength. It's the quiet moments in the dark when no one is watching and you still choose to keep going. That's real resilience. That's what being a queen looks like. Not unshaken, but unbroken. Pain makes you pay attention. It pulls you into the truth of who you are without the titles, without the relationship, without the validation. And what you'll start to see is that you were never fragile. You were just gentle. You were never weak. You were open. There's nothing soft about loving someone with your whole heart. It takes an incredible kind of courage to be that vulnerable, to offer your soul with no guarantee it will be honored. So when the heartbreak hits and you feel like you're falling apart, trust that it's not the end of you. It's the beginning of a deeper version of you, a version that's wiser, a version that sets boundaries, a version that doesn't chase approval, a version that knows pain doesn't make you less. It forges you into something even stronger, even more powerful, even more real. You don't get that kind of strength from ease, you get it from the fire. And if you're walking through right now, just know you are becoming something untouchable, something sacred, the kind of woman who doesn't just survive heartbreak, but rises from it glowing. There's a moment after someone leaves when you're tempted to reach back, to chase, to explain, to fight for something that's already slipping away. It's natural. You give your heart, and your heart wants answers. But let me remind you of something deeply important. Queens don't chase, they rise. You weren't made to beg for love, to convince someone of your worth, to prove that you deserve to be chosen. You are not a second option. You are not someone who has to audition for someone else's attention. The moment someone chooses to walk away, they've made their decision, and that tells you everything you need to know. It's not your job to run after someone who let go of your hand. It's your job to hold your head high and walk forward with grace. The truth is, real love doesn't need to be begged for. Yeah. When it's right, you don't have to chase it. It stands beside you. It respects you. It sees you not as a burden or as a too much, but as a blessing. Someone who truly values you will never make you feel like your presence is something they can walk away from so easily. And I know it's hard. I know there's a part of you that still wants to fix things, that still wants to believe that maybe, just maybe, they'll come back. But queens don't sit around waiting to be rescued. They rescue themselves, and they don't fall apart when someone exits their life. They evolve. They evolve. They feel the pain, they own it, and then they transform it into power, your silence, your strength, your refusal to chase. That's not weakness, that's dignity. That's you stepping into your divine power. Because when you choose yourself, when you stop running after people who can't see your value, you're telling the universe, I know what I'm worth, and I will no longer accept anything less. You don't rise by being chosen. You rise by choosing yourself again and again, until the world mirrors back what you've already claimed in your soul. There's something sacred about reaching that moment where you realize you are your own home. When everything crumbles, when the silence gets loud, when the people you leaned on fall away, you begin to see the truth. Your power was never in them. It was always in you. For so long, you might have been waiting for someone to come along and complete the picture, to bring you peace, to make you feel seen, to hold the pieces together. But no one else is responsible for your healing. No one else is meant to save you. That kind of weight was never theirs to carry. Because the person who is always meant to stand by your side, who will never abandon you, who sees every part of you, is you. It's easy to forget that in love. You give so much. You compromise. You pour all of your energy into making someone else feel safe and seen, and sometimes you forget to do that for yourself. You forget that you were never made to live in someone else's shadow. You were made to stand in your own light. When they leave, there's a stillness that follows. And in that stillness, you start to hear your own voice again. Not the voice that was trying to keep the peace. Not the voice that tried to please, but the voice that remembers who you were before the noise, before the doubt, before you tried to earn love that should have been given freely. That voice inside you, that's the one you trust now. That's the one you listen to. That's the one that will guide you through the darkness, back to yourself. Because you don't need a relationship to validate your existence. You don't need a partner to make you feel important. You don't need anyone to declare you enough. You're enough the moment you took your first breath. And the moment you start owning that truth is the moment everything shifts. You become your own peace, your own strength, your own sanctuary, your own sanctuary. You realize that the most beautiful love story you'll ever write is the one between you and the woman you're becoming. She's not desperate. She's not broken. She's not waiting to be chosen. She knows who she is, and the world around her starts shifting the second she starts walking like she remembers it too. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line. Some days you'll feel strong, powerful, even free, and then suddenly, without warning, the memories sneak back in. A song plays, or a scent drifts by, or you see something that reminds you of what was. And it hits you like a wave, that ache in your chest, that old sting. And for a moment, you wonder if you've made any progress at all. But you have. Oh, you have. Because real healing isn't about forgetting. It's about feeling without collapsing. It's about standing in the middle of your pain, looking it in the eye, and choosing not to run from it anymore. It's about allowing yourself to grieve what you thought would last while still believing in everything that's yet to come. It's holding space for both the sadness and the strength, and that is not weakness. That is the definition of courage. You're not failing just because you miss him sometimes. You're not broken because part of you still wonders why it had to end. That's human. That's your heart still doing what it does, feeling deeply. But what matters is that you're still moving, that every day you're choosing to live, to rise, to put one foot in front of the other, even if your heart is still learning how to beat on its own again. You are rebuilding, quietly, patiently. You are learning to love your own company again, to enjoy the sound of your own thoughts without the weight of someone else's doubts. You're remembering the dreams you had before you made space for someone who wasn't meant to stay. You're planting seeds in the soil they walked away from. And one day soon, something beautiful will grow there. And when it does, you'll look back and realize that the pain didn't destroy you. It refined you. It peeled away the parts of you that were clinging to what wasn't real and revealed something more powerful underneath. Something softer, wiser, fiercer, the kind of woman who doesn't just get over heartbreak. She transforms through it. And when the world sees you again, they won't see the woman who was left. They'll see the woman who rose. There comes a moment, quietly but surely, when you stop looking back. Not because it didn't matter, not because you've forgotten, but because you finally realize that what's ahead of you is far more important than what's behind you. And it's in that moment, when you stop turning around for answers, for closure, for apologies you never received, that your true power begins to bloom. You don't need to carry the weight of a past that no longer serves you. You don't need to make sense of someone else's choices or wonder if you could have done more. You did your part. You showed up. You loved with your whole heart. And now? Now you owe it to yourself to move forward, not with resentment, but with reclamation. Reclaiming your time, your peace, your light, your voice. Because your life was never meant to revolve around someone else's presence or absence. Your life is about you, your growth, your purpose, your healing, your joy. And as you step into this next season, you'll begin to see it more clearly than ever. You are never waiting to be saved. You are slowly learning how to save yourself, and there's a beauty in that process, a quiet rebirth, one that doesn't shout but glows, one where you're not trying to prove your worth anymore. You're simply living it, fully, boldly, authentically. And the more you do, the more the right things begin to find you, not because you chased them, but because you created space by finally letting go of what wasn't meant to stay. You are not defined by the way someone else failed to love you. You are defined by how you continue to love yourself through every storm. You are defined by the way you rise, by the way you refuse to give up on your own heart. And slowly, the pain becomes softer. The noise quiets. And in its place, you find a woman who is no longer broken, but reborn. A woman who didn't just survive being left. A woman who learned to walk away from anything that no longer honors her worth. Let the silence stay where his voice used to be. Let the space he left become room for your peace, your power, your next chapter. You are not a woman who crumbles when someone walks away. You are a woman who rises. It's always been about how you carry yourself when no one else is standing there at all. And if you can rise after this, you can rise from anything.